So he is a filmmaker, playwright, novelist, and stand-up comedian, owner of Flawless Arts Production Company, and aspiring novelist. Today, we're going to talk about getting comfortable with being vulnerable, putting yourself out there, what it's like to bomb a project, and how it's actually good. Stay tuned till the end when we share 3 ways that being vulnerable actually makes you stronger. Army veteran, storyteller extraordinaire, my cousin, Noah Waters III, everyone. Yay!
Yay.
So when we were talking off mic, we were talking about memory palette. And you wouldn't tell me what that is.
Okay.
I want to know. Tell me about it.
Memory palette is something I refer to for my style of storytelling. I realized at literally an elementary school age that I was meant to tell stories, which I know sounds super pretentious,
No.
but it was the only thing. I mean, I was and still am relatively unintelligent. I'm not a very smart person. I've been very creative my entire life, but struggled harshly throughout schooling and have memory problems and things of that nature. But I knew as a kid, if I was telling a story, whether it was a lie or if I was telling something narratively for school or whatever the case was, it was better if I was using a personal experience or a memory. So from a young age, I kind of set out, and I hate that I'm going to say this, but like a purpose-driven life.
It's only bad if you say hashtag before you say it.
Bring out the millennial in me. No, so like I set out to live a life that would give me just a shit ton of experience and memories that I could put together on my memory palette. And then I would use that memory palette to paint my stories with. So like if this character was experiencing that, then I could recall this to use it to tell that story.
Oh my God, that's so good.
So sometimes, like when I come up with an idea, I don't come up with prose. I don't come up with concepts. I don't come up with story, which sucks because as an amateur or an aspiring or a beginning filmmaker, that's what they want. They want concept-heavy stuff, like stuff we can go pitch to ABC or whatever the case is real easily. I don't do that. All my stuff is low concept, character-driven. So like I'll come up with someone who has a dilemma, whether it's cognitive dissonance or something of that nature, and then how do they deal with that? And that's the story. But in order to get there, I have to be able to have some type of empathetic attachment to it, and that's always through some type of memory I've had, whether it's something that I've experienced or something I've seen. So I'm a very mental note-taking people watcher.
So are you saying you'll do things just to experience them?
Yeah.
For the memory.
Yeah, like instead of going out, is this going to be safe? Normally it's not a thought pattern I have. Is this going to be good for me? Is not something I normally think of as, this is going to be a good memory? This is going to leave me a good scar that I can put on my memory palette.
That's so cool because so many people try to play it safe. And additionally, so many people are on automatic. I mean, think about most people's day. They wake up, alarm goes off, hit snooze a couple times. Not you, as we talked about.
No.
You're
No.
up. But then they go to their job. They do about the same thing every day.
Yeah.
They usually go to lunch the same couple places, and then they come home. And their whole life is filled with that routine.
Yeah, I wasn't built that way. I can't, I come from a working class family, obviously, but I don't, if I did the same thing every day, I'm scared for what might happen. I can't, monotony is literal death to me. I don't live in the same place for very long. I don't stay around the same people for very long, for many reasons. I think I'm a emotionally taxing person to be around. I take a lot of energy from people. I think about things differently than most people do, and I don't exactly, it just. I like change. If something is the same for too long, it turns to be just not good for me, my psyche, that kind of thing.
But I like that you lean into that. You're not fighting that. You're not trying to put yourself in a format of your life that doesn't work.
Yeah, I avoid formula at all costs, including storytelling. Like a lot of times they'll go into, okay, well, we need an inciting event here. It's like, not really.
So some people, like, there's a certain amount of uncertainty that they can tolerate, right? So when I travel, I have to have some things got to be planned.
Yeah.
But then I need to have enough non-plans to get bored, because something always magical happens. But I can't relax unless I have that certain amount of certainty. Are you saying that you operate with no certainty and
Not
you're pretty comfortable?
necessarily. No, I mean, excuse me, I get what you're saying. Like, you want random, but you want it organized. Like,
For sure.
yeah, so like, I want something spontaneous, but I want it when I want it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm so far as that, and I'm not, like balls to the wall. Whatever happens, happens. I'm going to wake up and walk out my door, and if the sun is over there, I'll go left. And it's not to that point. I free myself open to whatever opportunity presents. I don't tend to guard myself against difference. So, I'm not someone who thinks that just because someone or something is different than me that it's wrong. Doesn't mean it's right, but it does. But the knee-jerk reaction shouldn't be that it's wrong.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind, I kind of move through life like
An observer.
On the seat of my pants, fly by night. I don't plan. I get organized on set. And I get organized for specific creative things, but other than that, it's basically controlled chaos.
Yeah. Does that help you become more comfortable with the vulnerability that comes with pitching yourself and putting a creative project out there, doing stand-up comedy, and maybe it not going well? You just accept that. You accept it as an observer.
Well, I don't do well with disappointment. I have telephobia, which is a fear of being seen as a disappointment, along with depression and anxiety. So I don't do well with being a letdown, being seen as a letdown, or letting other people down. However, in the film industry, in the TV industry, and in stand-up comedy, it's almost nothing but failure. I mean, to get a project greenlit takes millions of no's. So in order for me to cope with that, what I have to do is to tell myself that it be happy about the no's, because all that means is that it's another step to the yes. In the world of stand-up comedy, I mean, it's instant gratification or instant humiliation.
So instant.
Yes, which is great. You don't have to, if you don't do well with people, like at a party, there's a little bit of control to the chaos on stage, because you have the mic. You don't really, unless you have a heckler, you don't really have someone responding.
Yeah.
So it's like, these are my opinions and my belief, and what's your reaction? And then, so the next time you say that again, you manipulate it a little bit. Like, this got a laugh, this didn't.
But then each crowd is different.
For sure, regionally. Beliefs in politics come into an involvement. Also, there's local, if you're performing in Tallahassee, you might make jokes about FSU.
Right.
You're not going to get the same reaction if you're doing it in Iowa.
Probably not.
No. Yeah.
That's so true. So you just accept that the no's and maybe a flopped joke is a part of the
process.
way, the process to getting that. Tell me about, like, when you experience vulnerability and you still feel the sting, it sounds like. Walk me through, like, if you were going to talk to someone who's like a younger version of you trying to do what you're doing now, what advice would you give about how to digest the no and the sting of a project not working or someone denying them?
I'd probably tell them, don't do it.
Really?
I would tell them, if you could have any resemblance of peace and like a glint of happiness in life by doing anything else, I would say do that. The creative, the creative industries are filled with letdown and disappointment and being told no and failure. So if you can do that and keep some form of sanity, then it might be for you. You know, but if if you need a steady paycheck, or if you need that kind of control of your life, might not be for you.
So it's almost like you have to assess how much of
Yes.
that certainty you need
Yes.
to figure out how much of the uncertainty you can tolerate.
Right. And you have to be able to manipulate the emotional side of it. You know, creative people were very porous. Our it's like I think of like a cork board, and our emotions are behind it. And if you are constantly sticking a pin in sad, it gets more and more easy to get through.
Yeah,
If
that's
you,
so
if
good.
you do it for
Yeah.
happiness, or if you do it for wonder, curiosity, that's kind of where you develop a habit creatively. You know, there's a theory that the crevices in our brains are formed through habits. So if you do something once, it's there. And if you do it again, it's easier because you've already kind of carved that path. And
made
you
a
do
crease.
it again, and then again, and then again. So that's how, they say if you do something more than twice, it's already formed a habit. You're going to fall into that whenever you walk back, unless you go through, some form of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and some kind of behavior correction.
Yep, that was another episode of the podcast. So how has being comfortable with being vulnerable made you a better person?
Okay, so if you think of vulnerability as the process, it's the work that you're putting in. It's using the metaphor of going to the gym. Okay, while you're at the gym, you're not going to see the result. You're not going to see bigger muscles, a leaner body, or anything of that nature. But after repetition and after being there, later you see the result. So same thing, if you're worried about being vulnerable, whether it's on stage or maybe my idea's dumb, whatever that case is, then use that as this is the process. I'm not seeing the result yet. So the result comes later. It's the opposite of the joke on stage. Instead of being instant gratification or instant humiliation, it's I'm putting in this work to see a result later. I'm being vulnerable now so that hopefully in the future I can use this experience, this memory, and recall it and think, this is the result I want, so I'm going to do it this way this time. So.
That's so good and so true. It's almost like you got to embrace that process.
Yeah, if you're just like piss poor filmmakers and directors who are working with actors, they give them the result that they want, and you might get that choice from the actor, but it's never going to be as good as you've helped the actor make the choice, because then they own it, and then they can develop that into the character themselves. So if you tell them, I need you to be super sad here and almost cry, they might do it, but it's because you told them to.
You're right.
Instead of like asking them, why would the character feel this way, and what do you think they would do?
Yeah.
And then get a couple of choices on camera.
Yeah, that's so true. When I was thinking about kind of what to offer some of the listeners today about why you shouldn't be afraid of vulnerability, I think you just brought up the first thing, which is being vulnerable makes you more connected to the world. It makes you more human.
Yeah. If you're not vulnerable, that means you have your shields up. So you're not going to be accepting of whatever the outcome is at that time. And you're not going to be able to fully experience it, because you're going to experience it from a jaded, standoffish standpoint. So you're not going to be getting the full effect. So the full effect might not be good. First of all, let's establish that. But it's informative. It's going to help you make the choice later.
For me, being vulnerable has just made me more human, I guess. Not that it makes me sound like I was a robot before in my past life, but I distinctly remember a time where I was so committed not to be not vulnerable, and to always look like I had the right answer, to look like I had it together, to be on, if you will. And it's exhausting.
Yeah. Einstein said if you attempt the same experiment more than once without changing any variables and expect a different result, you're insane.
Yeah.
So if you unfortunately he later went insane, but if you're attempting to better yourself, whatever that means to you, but you're not willing to make changes, you're attempting something that's insane.
Right.
The sanity isn't in, the process. The sanity is in. Well, I just said that completely wrong. The sanity isn't in tempting it. It's doing it the same way every time.
Right.
So if you continually make comfortable choices, we don't learn from comfortability. And you have to have that correction.
Yeah. And I think kind of on that note too is it's the long game.
Exactly.
It's an infinite game. And that's the second thing that being vulnerable gives you is it gives you a groundedness that comes from playing the infinite game. Being strong on the outside is a finite game. Okay, you won in that moment, whatever that moment is, whether it's, embellishing your resume or, telling a fib or just shutting off yourself emotionally. Yeah, you won. But in the long game, you're not winning and you're not as grounded and you're not as prepared when the really crazy stuff happens.
Exactly. So you can use like the memory palette idea for storytelling purposes, like I was talking about getting results-based direction from an actor. They might make that choice then and there, but it's not ingrained in them for that character. So you might have to remind them again for future choices and future scenes. Whereas if you let them discover it for themselves, then it's kind of ingrained in their character, so they're going to recall it because it's familiar.
Yeah. And
then they're developing that creative habit, which again, you talk about playing the short game, playing the long game. Especially if it's a feature film or a series, you're going to want them to be in that headspace each time they make a choice. So, technically on set, actors can't make incorrect choices. It's just, the director's job to tell them yes, no, give direction. So,
it's almost like the memory palette is part of the unique perspective of being vulnerable. 'Cause like taking a direction from direction from a director, is you're following an order, but to put yourself in that space, whether it's pretending on screen or whether it's pretty real on stage as a stand-up comic, you are gaining that unique perspective, which is the memory palette. And I would think that it would make you more in tune with what's going on, because instead of resenting your feelings or just trying to squash them, you're like, what am I feeling right now?
Yeah. It's like, I can't remember, they say the day you quit learning is the day you start to die. So if the memory palette is constantly changing, who I was a decade ago is not vastly different, but rather different than who I am now. And that's because of the memories I've experienced thus far. So my palette's changed a little bit. Yeah,
that's so true. It makes you not regret much.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that.
No?
Yeah, because you can have having regret for a memory is not a bad thing. It's a very millennial thought about having this regretless life. Like I don't regret anything. And
maybe regret's not the right word. I was thinking so how you resent things that have happened to you? Maybe that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, you can always wish that something did not happen.
Yeah.
However, think about it. If you had the opportunity to remove that experience, the lesson you would not have learned.
Right.
So your palette wouldn't be how it is now.
And I wouldn't be, for me, when I think about sucky things that happened, I wouldn't be as compassionate. I think being vulnerable, a benefit for me has been I'm a lot less judgy.
Yeah.
I used to be pretty damn judgy.
Well, I think, the more limited your experience is, the less you have those porous pores to attach to or to try and touch again. So, it's like, the young children can tend to be slightly more narcissistic and all-knowing. And then the more they realize they don't know, the more they experience, the more they grow, the more they're willing to learn.
That's so true. I have a friend from Iran. He said that there's a saying there that basically means that you take a cup of water and you put it into the ocean and you look in it and you go, nope, no whales in there. And it's because you only know what you know.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah,
Isn't that so
that's
good?
Perfect. Yeah.
It'd be cool if I could say it in that language, but
Right.
but no one would know what
No,
it
it
meant.
works.
So.
Yeah. Make sure it's a glass. Don't say cup. You know, 'cause I
good.
think it's styrofoam.
Cup.
But yeah, cup, glass.
Trash
you
in
can
the
see through.
ocean. It does kind of ruin the beauty of it, doesn't it? Well, I'm excited to see what projects you have coming next. So what can you tell me about what you have coming up next?
All my dates are on my website, flawlessarts.com. I'm at Noah Waters III on everything. I have a lot of stuff in the works, partly because I have ADD. The other part is that, that's just how the nature of the business is. You have a bunch of fires burning. But working, so my next project is a short film entitled Hush Money that I'm really passionate about. It deals with sexual harassment and sexual predators in a way, in a tone and style of storytelling that I love. I have a mini series I'm working on with a stand-up comedian friend of mine. It's about narcissistic abuse and LGBTQ plus relationships in the dark and dingy world of stand-up comedy.
Ooh.
That's called The Wrong Girl. It's a mini series, 1-hour drama. I have a documentary I'm working on called Take a Breath, which is about cystic fibrosis. A good friend of mine has cystic fibrosis, and it's something I didn't know a lot about. Never done a documentary before, so far I just have a crap ton of interviews to put together, and obviously following her with her journey too. She's needs a second lung transplant. So, that's that. And then I have my first feature, hopefully shooting next year.
Where can we find all this stuff?
Some of it's not findable. some of the stuff I've worked on is owned by other people that I'm not allowed to take ownership of. And then obviously like the shorts and things of that nature will be on YouTube and Vimeo.
And your
Venmo,
Noah.
sorry. No, Vimeo. Is that right?
Yeah,
the first
Vimeo.
time?
Yeah, Venmo's for money.
I know.
Yeah.
I always get them wrong.
So we can look at your YouTube channel and see, just keep an eye out there. Hit the bell.
And then normally
if you
if
will.
I have something like a resulting product that I'm allowed to show, I'll talk about it on social media and things of that nature.
Okay, good. Because, those all sound really cool. So thank you for coming on. This was
it was a pleasure.
great.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap. Good job.
Yay!
Woo!